Well, I don't know, but there certainly are enough of them that you could make the
Is this a thermite or thermate convention going on? I mean,
Alex, to be serious, it's really apparent that these people were hired and brought into the investigation because they knew what not to look for. They knew what to avoid looking at. And they certainly did that. There was no testing per the national standard for fire investigation.
But it's more than that. I mean, who are you going to find in government who you can bring in to investigate something that's clearly an inside job? I mean, who do you bring in? You bring in people you know you can trust. People who were...
Yeah, very possibly.
Have you been... I know you go to some of these events. I mean, do you ever have a chance to come over and get a hold of their hand and look in their eyes?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to any of them directly, but I sent a very polite and professional letter to them back in 2004. Never got a reply other than being fired, and have made several polite requests for discussions and have been turned down multiple times by NIST. So, I don't want to go to their homes or go to their offices necessarily. Maybe I do, but I haven't done that yet.
Are there any other thermate experts that are all crowding around the investigation?
Well, I'm really interested in also people who were working on novel fireproofing, right? So we're talking about what alternative fireproofings may have been involved and how they could be related to nanothermite coatings. So Richard Gann, who was the guy who actually did the final editing for the NIST report, he was one of the top people, was working on a novel fireproofing project for a couple of years before 9/11, and he involved some of the world's leading experts on nanothermites.
You're working with fireproofing. You go out and hire nanothermite explosive experts. So that's how you coat the towers to make sure they don't burn.
Well, it's
or explode.
It's a very strong theory at this point, and if your listeners go to 9/11 Blogger, I put up a blog piece that has a slideshow of 26 micro photos. They're from a microscope, and you can see that half of them are nanothermite residues from materials I've made and ignited, and then the residues look identical, or very nearly identical, to the magnetic portion of the World Trade Center dust. So there's these red-orange chips, there's all these spheres, there's other types of molten formations, there's these vesicular formations, clearly the remnants of an explosion.
The slag?
Yeah, the slag material. So if you look at this slideshow at 9/11 Blogger, I think it'll be, people like pictures, so we're unfortunately to some extent becoming almost an image-only society.
Yeah, soon we won't even use our thumbs, we'll just eat out of a McDonald's feed bag.
So I'm trying to reach out to the people who are more compelled by images than all the writing I've done, which is something for people who do a lot of reading. Yeah, these are long essays that I write, but they are interesting. But the photos are just really compelling. If you take a look at those, I think you'll see what I'm trying to say here. And apart from the photos and the writing, there is a large group of scientists now around the United States and in Europe, and in several laboratories in Europe, that are doing chemical and physical tests on the World Trade Center dust particles that we're finding. And, there's some fairly well conclusive papers being written, led by Stephen Jones at this point and others, some newer, younger research scientists, and some in Europe.
Well, Kevin Ryan, I want to get into that and take some calls, but I'll tell you what really let me know 2 years ago that you guys were onto something. The way the media attacked you and the way operatives, who I was already watching in the 9/11 Truth Movement, savagely went after you and Jones. They really showed who they were. The establishment is scared to death of this thermate research, and that now as you dig deeper in, and the who's who of explosive thermite and special fire coating are all bivouacked, cloistered around this, acting suspicious, and the NIST reports are all frauds. I mean, my God, we're dealing with some hardcore individuals here, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, you've got a lot of courage, my friend, and the people involved with you do, because Because, I mean, this is the biggest whodunit ever. And we know now, they're in the grand jury out there that wouldn't call for a further investigation of this. These people are just wicked. To know that you guys have done the research that's got you one step away from having your hands on the perpetrators, that has got to really be bracing.
Yeah, just take a look at a three-way crossroads, and that is who had access to the buildings, who had access to the technologies, and who was involved in the cover-up. If you look at those three groups and try to find connections, and you'll find a good deal of connections.
Oh my
God. I think we'll start to find our culprits.
Well, what's so incredible, folks, we're on the air right now giving you just proof on a silver platter. And this is just the scientific evidence. And then, these former deputy defense heads and, all these spooks in a spook building, Building 7, all of this going on. Then you've got the firefighters and police saying, get back, we've been told they're bringing it down. And Silverstein slipping up and saying, we gave the order to bring it down and gave the order, watched it come down to pull it. We have all the, the videos of cops live saying get back, not just the eyewitnesses now saying, yeah, I was a cop or I was a firefighter or I was an emergency worker. And they said, it was on the radio, a countdown. And then I remember hearing on the news they were going to blow up 7. They go, no, we never said that. It fell on its own. This is incredible. Kevin Ryan, this is amazing. We have them. We have them, and I guess they're just counting on the public not being able to deal with the horror. And believe me, it horrifies. How did you deal with this? I know you're a scientist, an engineer, but how did you deal with it as the evidence just piles on the evidence? And then you're dealing with mass murderers here.
Yeah, it was an incredible shock for me in 2003 when I got it. And I started working very heavily on investigating it myself and asking a lot of questions of people I knew, and of course it was a serious blow to me to get fired from my job, and I had to take some time and take care of my family first before continuing. But it's been recently in the last year or two just something that I know needs to be done. Okay, we know we have to figure out what happened. We have to communicate as much of it as we possibly can. And that's what we can do. And like you said, you ask God for help, and if that helps you and it does help me, then that's what you do. And you just continue on doing the best you can.
No, literally, I would collapse if it wasn't for the higher power. And people can laugh at that out there, but I guess they haven't been in this type of psychological adversity to be coldly looking at the facts. Kevin, as you know, there's over 200 declassified examples where elements of the government have admittedly staged terror. So, they do it over and over again. They just did it so big on 9/11, and people say, well, let's just forget about it. It's too horrible. If we leave these people in power, they're unstable. What are they going to do next?
Right. So ultimately, there has to be a transition. There has to be a great change in our society. So we have to take responsibility for that. First of all, we have to take responsibility for the deception in our lives. That's what we're trying to do here. We take responsibility for that. Then we start building a new society. That has to happen. I'm afraid it has to happen. So, the most positive approach we can take, but definitely moving forward for ourselves and not expecting the government or whoever, powerful entities, to take care of things for us, because they're going to take care of things for us, but as you say, they're not necessarily on our side.
Well, $8.5 trillion stolen by offshore banks. They tell Congress you're not allowed to look at it. Bloomberg reports war powers has been declared by the Federal Reserve, is now running the country. We've got open announcements of 20,000 combat troops to be used against the American people. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Right. Yep. So what can we do? The things that I can do are investigate the events of 9/11, develop new technologies if possible for a new society. Those are things I'm interested in doing.
Absolutely. We commend you. People need to go get, you guys have now done peer-reviewed studies as well by major scientific journals, have looked at your findings and found them to be accurate, and more are now being reviewed. You put a lot of work into this, you and Stephen Jones and other physicists and architects and engineers. I guess it's now up to the listeners. to get these scientific reports and give it to other engineers, friends and family, that are in these fields. Because I really think it's the fact that this scientific debate is what's going to lead to really this being forced out into the open.
Yeah, it has made a difference. It's changing minds in areas that we haven't seen ready to change yet, and that's what the peer-reviewed scientific articles in what we call mainstream journals can do. So we can send those to any mainstream scientists, and they will be usually ready to look at that sort of stuff because it is published in a mainstream journal. It doesn't make them feel as if they're taking a risk to read something like that. So it does help.
Do you think the perpetrators are scared of you guys? I mean, obviously they are, but I mean, they've got to know that they're in trouble. They've got to know that even if they don't ever physically get arrested, that the word's getting out about them.